Hi guys, welcome for joining me this morning. I'm out in a local patch of woodland. Decided to come out this morning for a bit of a coffee, chill out, do a little bit of a gear review for you. So hope you enjoy. I guess now let's cue the cinematic intro. Ready? Alright guys, so got a little bit of a camp area sort of set up. Put up a 3x3 tarp, just purely because it's not much of a breeze today, but what is coming in is particularly icy, and you can just feel it kind of, zapping the heat away from your hands and your face and stuff. So I put up a little 3x3 tarp, and I brought my hammock out this morning. When I originally had in mind to do this video, it was nice and dry. All I was going to bring was a little seat pad. There was no real wind, so I wasn't even going to bring a tarp. But it's kind of evolved. It's a little bit damp out. It's far damper. It's had a lot of rain recently, so it's far damper than usual. So what I decided to do was bring me hammock, and I'm literally sort of 2-3 inches off the ground. Nice low slung tarp, keeps all the wind out. And I've pushed my whole hammock sort of way out the tarp this side, just so then I'm a bit further away from that end where all the breeze is coming from. But it's just done a perfect job of just shutting out all that icy cold breeze. So I'm going to go ahead now and tell you what we're up to. So 58 pattern water bottle holder, and we're going to look at this morning using the 58 pattern cook set. And primarily what we're going to be using is going to be the Crusader cup itself, bomb-proof, timeless classic. The homemade cup lid was made out of an old mess tin. And most importantly, the little stove. Now, when I first got my cook set, I didn't think a lot of this stove. In fact, I didn't really use it. Ended up knocking around until it got lost or chucked in the bin. Then I kind of thought about it and realised kind of how smart, super simple, super easy this is. So I spoke to my brother-in-law Andy, and he actually gave me his. So thank you very much, Andy. That's much appreciated. So this is the round 2. So the idea is, main source of fuel we're going to be using today is hexamine blocks. However, round sort of makeup removal pads, the little cotton wool type dipped in some old sort of candle wax, does the job. And you notice as well, it fit into the bottom of the stove, almost perfectly. It looks like it was almost meant to be there. But we're actually going to use today hexamine block, just your solid fuel type. No particular brand or anything in mind. They're all fairly good. These, as you can tell by the box and the condition of them, are years and years old. So you'll probably find when I light it, there'll be a lot of crackling and fizzing with just little bits of damp and stuff like that. So we're going to do that, get our coffee on the go, and then from there, we're going to test something that a friend of mine, Paddy, gave to me. Whoop. Now, this is a Flamos ethanol chafing fuel. Now he tells me that I can just literally pop this lid off, there's a flammable gel inside. Now he assures me that I can literally just light the top of this pot, and all this lovely green gel then will start to burn. And when I'm ready, just pop the lid back on, and snuff it out. So we're going to try that. I'm going to set up a little kind of, you know, four posts of sticks and a little bit of a windbreak. And I've got a small Vango fry pan. And in there is my pre-made little cheese toasty pocket things. So like I said, there's my fry pan. The idea is not necessarily to fry these, but just to warm them through so the cheese starts to melt, you know, the bread itself becomes more toasty, and yeah, see what we've got really. Not expecting too much out of this, but yeah, we'll see what we've got. So, I'll start to get everything set up, get my brew on, and we'll come back. Cheers. So the 58 pattern canteen set was first brought into service, as the name suggests, in 1958. And it's had several revisions over the years, but things like the Osprey bottle and the plastic beverage cup were brought in more in the 60s. The 90s. In the 60s, they changed the shape and style of the metal cup and made it stainless. Previously, in the 58 pattern, it was all aluminium. But anyone who's sort of used aluminium stuff will know that the cup seems to get hotter than the fluid inside, so by the time you can actually handle holding it to your lips, your drink's already gone cold anyway. So it was all a bit of a nightmarish exercise. So they changed that then to a stainless steel sort of cup system. And I mean, to be fair, you've got to be looking somewhere in the region of, you know, millimetre thick solid stainless steel, and the way that it's been shaped and everything like that just adds to its strength. I mean, they're absolutely rock solid, and to be honest, they've been a bushcrafter's dream for absolutely donkey's years. And obviously the army use them themselves, but I think a lot of the army lads now go over to different options just purely because of the, you know, the size and the weight. But I absolutely love them. You know, you can cook a small meal in this cup, you know, you can brew a coffee, brew a tea, absolutely no problem at all. But like I said, the beauty of it is you can heat up your water in the main canteen cup, filter it then over into your plastic cup then for a beverage, and then you've got then space then to cook a meal. I think, you know, the army lads will stuff a ration pack in there with a load of water around it and boil that up, etc, etc. You know, the limits are endless. Now, I took an old army style ration pack, an old style ration tin, mess tin, and what I've done was I followed a guy, Simon, a bloke in the woods. Highly recommend checking out his YouTube channel if you're interested in sort of, you know, the outdoors and how-tos and making stuff. And what we've done was made a ply template at the top of the cup. You know, I followed his directions exactly, made a ply template, and then I took an old mess tin, cut that about. Now, even this piece here, I chose to cut out the side piece of the mess tin. This was the handle, and even this rivet through here, I just used a piece of the handle, just shoved it through, and then put it against a piece of metal, put a piece of metal on the top, and then just hit it with a hammer until it became more of a rivet. So as you can see, mine's got scratches in it, you know, some dents and dings, you know, it's beat up and battered, but to be honest, it's a functional sort of item, you know. So we'll pop that on there, let that boil up a little bit quicker. We'll come back and we've got a brew on. we go, guys. It was literally about, I don't know, 3.5 minutes. Open this now. Look at that, rolling boil. You notice the hexamine blocks there, still just about burning away. Right, stick a mocha in, see you in just a second. Oh. Okay, so what I've got here is supermarket mocha. It was 6 coffees for £1.50, which ain't necessarily the cheapest about, but you know, end of the day, these are nice coffees, it's worth paying the money for. And literally, just add to boiling water. It couldn't be any simpler than that, and it's very, very tasty. So, what I'm going to do is, because this cup itself is boiling hot, I'm just going to chuck it into the plastic cup, because that means as soon as the liquid cools down enough where I can drink it, so they've got a hot cup to contend with. But to be honest, most of the time I just drink out the metal cup anyway. So the only downside of these supermarket mochas, don't know if you can see that, you know, they're standard mocha, like your cappuccino, is extremely foamy. It does tend to make a bit of a mess of the cup, if I'm being honest, but you know, if I was out on a camp for a few days, kind of get a bit bored of the idea of cleaning all the scum out of my cup, so usually I just go with a Nescafe 3-in-1. But one thing I can recommend, if I can find it, is these tiny little bubble cloths. Now these cloths are fantastic. You literally add them to a bit of water and they'll puff up and grow into, you know, a wet wipe somewhere around about, I don't know, nearly a foot, you know, 8 inches square, we'll say. I managed to buy a pack of these on the internet. There was 100 in a pack, and I think I paid £4.50 for the whole entire pack for 100 of these. And again, look how small they are. They weigh absolutely nothing, so there's no excuses, you know, not to chuck a couple of these in the bottom of your pack. You know, just helps with cleaning up kit. You know, and I always just, usually when I'm out and about, just keep a couple in my pocket. Like I said, all you need then is a bit of water. So I'll show you one of them when I finish my coffee then, and you know, you can see what one of these in action. Right. Okay guys, so the little toasty pockets filled with cheese have been on for a couple of minutes. You'll just see they're getting noticeably warm to the touch. You see slight evidence of sort of browning. So far you can probably see a bit of cheese there on the side. You know, even that's only just sort of, you know, beginning to melt. So I'd rather put this through nice and slow. Gentle bit of heat from that sort of chafing pot, and then sort of see what, you know, see if we can get that nice and melted and cooked on the inside. Beautiful. Okay, so I've taken the first cheesy pocket off. I've got 2, so cheese in there, starting to melt. Nice bit of steam coming out of it. But I've just moved the sticks down into the ground a bit more to get that little chafing pot sort of closer to the pan, because you know it's made it toasty, but I mean it's been on there for 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, actually maybe a bit longer. You know, and the cheese only just starting to melt, so I'm going to get the second one on in an effort to leave that one on a bit longer with a bit more heat. You know, see if we can really get that cheese melting. But so far I quite like these little cheese toasty pockets. You know, they're quite neat, you know, quite easy, and all I've done is just stuff some cheese in there. Don't get any simpler than that really on a little morning out in the woods. You know, it's exactly what you want, something warm, you know, something simple. Oh, that coffee's nice. That coffee is nice, and it's surprising for me to have a coffee without putting, you know, sweeteners or sugar in. So you know, with these mochas, I find they're sweet enough, you don't have to put anything in them. So if you really do like your coffee kind of dark and bitter, maybe these mochas ain't necessarily the one for you. But like I said, I got these from a certain supermarket, so every supermarket's going to be slightly different and give you a slightly different product. But let's give this a bite test and see how we get on. Yeah, this one could have definitely done with a bit longer, but the bread's nice. Actually, the bread's really nice. Got a bit of a, again, I suppose, a little bit of a sweet taste to it. Oh, look at that cheese there in the middle. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I think I'll be doing these again, you know. So I want to take the opportunity to thank anyone who's taken the time to watch any of my videos already. But I feel, you know, this last, well, what we're looking at now, 10 months, 11 months of, you know, being out and about filming, kind of feel I've come, you know, quite a ways already, but I really genuinely feel like there's a long, long ways to go. So I've changed what I'm using as a editing package. I've added slightly to the equipment I'm using in regards to the Rode video mic, which I'd like to think you guys are now experiencing a pure, you know, better quality of sound. So I've already released a couple of videos that I feel are a bit more kind of how-to tutorial based, but actually really I kind of feel the need now to kind of start that journey again. So I've had some fun, I've, you know, gained some experience, and you know, but I really feel now that I've got better hardware to produce videos on. It's just made life billions of times easier and better. You know, slightly better equipment and slightly better understanding of, you know, how to edit and give you a story. Then also, you know, the aspects to film from, etc., etc. Kind of, you know, like I said, I really feel I kind of have to start this journey from scratch. So kind of spent a little bit of time on YouTube looking back through some of my videos a couple of weeks ago, and actually slightly horrified at some of the stuff I produced in the past in regards to done a tarp sort of pitching tutorial, which I felt the content, the reason for it, everything behind it was the right move. However, the audio quality was just absolutely diabolical. It was horrific. I felt that particular day I wasn't actually speaking too clearly enough. So to hear, you know, exactly what the point I'm trying to get across, I felt was, you know, unfair to the viewer. So yeah, I definitely want to, you know, relook it and revisit that sort of idea. You know, I want to break the video down a little bit, at least put into the descriptions exactly the timing of when things were done. But like I said, you have to understand, you know, when I produced that, I really didn't have the hardware capable of producing something decent for you. And I was using GoPro Studio, which GoPro Studio was a free piece of software that came with the GoPro, which I think it was a lot of package for the money, but I just think the software was never set up properly, and it was absolutely horrific to use. But you know, if you had the right hardware and you knew how to use the product sort of in a way that was gentle to the software, you could just about sort of, you know, make a video. But I just don't think it was a brilliant video. So I'm now using a piece of software called Movavi 14, and again, it's something I paid for. It wasn't expensive actually for what you get, and I feel it gives you a better quality product. I'm still playing with the rendering process, which is when you finish the video, you render it then, and it makes it then the finished article. It takes all those files, all the transitions, all the editing you've put into it, all the you know, background music, and kind of then makes it into that finished, you know, file then that you can upload to YouTube or, you know, share on Facebook, etc., etc. Still getting used to the rendering process. You know, I've found there's a lot of volume differential, so I could be talking to you now, I'm listening to it on my laptop, you know, as I'm editing it, but as soon as I render it, then the difference between, say, the background music and my speech, or the sound of, you know, what's going on around, the volumes seem to almost equalize and come back to the middle a little bit. So maybe, you know, going forward I should put sort of less background music on when I'm talking. You know, I thought it kind of added a little bit of, you know, essence of drama, etc., etc., but actually it's becoming more of a hindrance to you as the viewer. So, you know, I'm gonna look at that. So yeah, who knows, I may even start this channel sort of from scratch again, and just take away a lot of the early content as I kind of then replace it with new content that I feel you would want to see more, and I feel, you know, is a better representation of what I can produce, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's all good, positive food for thought. So where I'm actually filming from today is a local patch of woodland, which is a very short walk from where I live. Like I said, it's a little patch of council maintained woodland, and I'd love to spend more time here. You know, I really would. Every time I come here I realise just, you know, it's small, it's very modest little patch of woodland, but you know, it's got so much potential. But unfortunately, every time I do come here, I'm finding that there's more and more of traces of sort of people coming up here and, you know, kind of mistreating the area. You know, I've been coming up here since I was a child, you know, really have. I mean, this was my back garden and my stomping ground as a youngster, and I'm finding it really frustrating that, you know, when I do venture up here and take the time to come up here, you can see lots of evidence of people coming up here and misusing the place. You know, I've seen live trees hacked down, you know, which is bad enough, but then they're left right across, you know, the paths. Beer cans stuck up in branches in the trees. You know, like I said, you know, this place is screaming out for a bit of, you know, a bit of TLC, a bit of management, you know, and this could be a really lovely, thriving little habitat, but kind of reluctant to spend any time up here and clear any areas and do anything in certain parts of this woodland, because, you know, I just feel you're going to be inviting then, you know, more and more people to come up and, you know, misuse the area without kind of a clear understanding of how it should be, you know, treated and how it should be nurtured and sort of brought on, you know. So really does kind of frustrate me. I mean, there's a awkward shaped plot, but in total, including the meadows, you know, you've got 13 acres up here. There should really be enough recreational space for everyone to use, you know, but unfortunately I just don't think our educational system, you know, and our local community really kind of promotes the correct use, you know, and it's just left to rack and ruin really. And like I said, it kind of, you know, the more it deteriorates, I do feel that the more potential for more people with lack of education as how to treat this place is going to see it deteriorate. Now, I've always been on the understanding that it's actually a National Trust piece of land, so it's actually considered as a conservation area, and I really feel, National Trust don't do anything with this place, never have done, as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, this has always been council maintained, so as you can imagine, the amount of maintenance and the amount of management that goes into this small plot is nothing, and it's really kind of frustrating. I'd love to see things happen. I mean, we're doing a local area sort of group in around sort of housing conditions and use of sort of average spaces, and I've raised a couple of times through different mediums that, maybe I feel, for the amount of greenbelt land we've got around here, maybe some sort of forest sort of school or, sort of outdoors activity sort of school on a plot like this would be absolutely ideal, to really bring in the local area. I mean, we've got sort of 3 catchment areas of primary schools that I can just think of off the top of my head. No, 4 catchment areas of primary schools. There's a lot of children that can really benefit from understanding a bit more about, the spaces we've got around us and how they should be treated and what type of habitats they hold for animals, as well as you start to look at woodcraft and bushcraft and, wilderness survival skills, however you want to term it. I mean, the local area that I live in lost its scout group a few years ago, so I'm actually an assistant scout leader for the next town over, which is fine, but I just feel with the the lack of accurate sort of support for these children to understand what they've got on their doorstep and how they could really use it to embellish their lives and how to look after it while they're using it, I think it's non-existent, and I think that's it's a real shame. Well, the sky's come over all dark, cloudy, very icy looking. So I think I'm gonna finish packing my kit up. I think I'm gonna scran them before it comes down. Spent too many trips packing up, soaking wet gear, and things like tarps now I don't even bother to dry them out. I've said in a couple of mid videos before, my tarps, we seem to store them in dry sacks now. And that's not to keep the tarp dry, that's to keep the rest of my kit dry so I can chuck it in there. And usually I just leave it in there bogging, to be honest, and then when you bring it out in the next trip, it's damp, wet, smells, stinks, who cares? You hang out for half an hour and it all airs out anyway, so why take them home? I used to take them home and hang them out on the landing. I used to rig up, you know, ridge lines at home and hang them out, and dried leaves and grass and bits of crap all over the house, and I don't really bother now. It just doesn't seem worth it, you know. At times, not every time, you know. I'm a father and a working man. I don't get the time to go out as much as I'd like to, so, you know. But, you know, there was a time where I was using my kit so much it just didn't pay to take it home and dry it, pack it all away again, etc, etc, just to turf it all out. Next weekend go out and do exactly the same one over again. It just didn't seem worth it. So, like I said, if looking at getting a range of stuff just basically for outdoors, you know, clothes, anything like that, dry sacks, you know, keeps it dry where you're going out and about if it's already dry, like clothes. But things like tarps and stuff, like I said, chuck it in there. Who really cares, you know, especially the cheaper the tarp the better. Just scrum it all in there, fold it all up in a dry sack and just forget about it till next time you go out. Simple. So I don't know about anyone else who sort of enjoys a bit of the great outdoors, but I tend to speak to people, you know, on and off about what I do and what I get up to, etc, etc, and I seem to get a lot of people kind of asking the question as to, you know, why? You know, why would I come out on a, you know, cold December morning and come and sit in the woods and have a coffee and sort of chill out? Well, look around you, you know, look around you. I find a natural beauty from, you know, the forest and the woods, sort of all times of year, you know, summer and winter alike. Yes, it seems a little bit contradictory to sit here and say to you that, you know, it's cheap and it's free while I sit underneath, you know, decent price tarp, you know, an average price hammock, you know, and an expensive coat. But it hasn't always been like this, you know. I've been into doing this sort of thing on and off years, almost all my life, I suppose. You know, I just kind of urge people, you know, to get out there a little bit more, you know, kind of see what's around you, you know, kind of sit and relax and experience what's around you, you know. It hasn't always been like this for me, you know. For me, this was something that, you know, I always done, you know, on the cheap. It's only been the last sort of 2 years or so that I've invested in different items of kit and equipment. You know, and anyone who knows me will probably agree that, you know, I am one of those sorts of people. I like to investigate things and buy different things and try them out and see what works for me and see what doesn't. You know, and it has led me to a lot of cheaper end sort of purchases of equipment that I use sort of on and off, but it's always kind of there if I want it, you know. Didn't necessarily need to go down that route. You know, my first outdoor stove I made out of a 1.7 litre sort of thermos flask that was due to go in the bin, you know. Made lots of different items of kit, and the first sort of, you know, tarps and shelters I had was a green, you know, builder's grade tarp, you know, barely waterproof and stuff like that. You know, I invested in very cheap entry-level items of equipment, you know, that weren't necessarily, you know, fit for the real purpose and, you know, that I bought them for. But, you know, you kind of start off, you got to start somewhere, you know. You start cheap, you start small, you know, beg, steal and borrow, you know, utilize, you know, bits of equipment and cups and cutlery and stuff from in the house. You know, it doesn't have to be expensive. You know, cheap plastic water bottles. You know, let's be fair, how many of us go out and buy a half litre, you know, bottle of Coke without thinking twice about chucking it in the bin? You know, that's probably one of the lightest, easiest bits of equipment you could ever use to, you know, carry water around in. you know. So it hasn't always been about Osprey packs and Ridgeline jackets and DD tarps and hammocks. You know, this is something that's, you know, over the years has kind of evolved into this, if that makes sense. But, you know, for camps here and there, you know, in times out, I'd be quite happy to be without it, you know, and just go back to using something really basic. You know, I've used bin bags to sit on the floor and keep my butt dry, you know. And it doesn't have to be about expensive pieces of kit. Actually, it's just about getting out and just, you know, exploring what's around you, you know, and spending a bit of time in it and enjoying it. Like, you know, I mean, this is free. You know, this is absolutely free. It's buck cheap. You know, you think, what if I used a coffee and some water? You know, I could have quite easily, you know, done that at home with no real expense. You know, I bought a pound packet of bread pockets. You know, I haven't spent phenomenal amounts of money to actually be here today. Yeah, okay, this sort of, you know, investment type stuff, that's something slightly different. But, you know, just to come out and be out here, do I really need this? No. Do I really need this? No, absolutely not. You know, I chose this to bring this because I have it, and it just makes, while I'm here, a bit more comfortable. You know, the idea is you know, it doesn't have to be expensive items of clothing, but if you dress appropriately for whatever time of year you're out in, you know, that's going to make so much difference. It's unbelievable, you know. And you think I'm coming out to enjoy a bit of time out in the, you know, the open with, you know, a bit of food and a coffee. You know, it's stuff that I would be consuming if I was at home regardless, you know. So, you know, this is why I do this, because it's as expensive as you want it to be, you know. However, it's, to me, it's you know, fulfilling and enriching. You know, spending a bit of time in a local patch of woodland on a cold Friday morning when everybody else is at work. You know, there's nobody around, not even dog walkers. You know, and just enjoying it for what it is. You know, we do family trips out where we hike, you know, and different things like that. You know, just for the, that's it, just for the want to go outdoors. You know, and I urge you to do it. You know, if you don't spend a lot of time in the outdoors, why not? You know, this country and, you know, this land is here for all of us to enjoy. You know, get out there, you know, get amongst it. You never know, you might, you know, like I did years and years ago as a child, running around in these woods and using it as an extension to my back garden. You know, you might just enjoy it. You know, and you might start to see it from a different aspect and a different point of view. You know, looking at the condition of this place and the fact that everything's covered in a carpet of ivy. You know, and the only thing that isn't really is the, you know, is the animal tracks and, you know, the odd few sort of main footpaths that run through here. To a lot of people that might not mean nothing, you know, but to people like me, that's, you know, seeing what a well-managed piece of woodland can give back to, you know, wildlife and everything like that, you know, without getting too heavy on the old conservation piece. You know, it's, you know, if you look at what it can give back, you know, to the habitats and the wildlife and, you know, the bird life, everything, you know, it's massive. You know, and like I said, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily even look twice or blink or even notice the fact that this place is, you know, slowly decaying and more every year getting covered in a thicker, heavier, more sustained blanket of ivy. You know, deadfall everywhere. You know, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily even blink twice, but for someone like me that spent, you know, a fair amount of my time, you know, a fair amount of my life sort of outdoors, it's a little bit, you know, frustrating. I mean, I'm not trying to be downhearted or negative about it, but, you know, I just wish we were all in a position to sort of, you know, understand what we've got, you know, for free, you know, and understand how to look after it and use it, and, you know, how to give back then to, like I said, the conservation side of things and give back to the local habitats. You know, I believe that a lot more families would still be going out and, you know, enjoying, you know, especially the fact that this patch is sort of surrounded by, you know, local towns that are, you know, effectively council estates, I guess, you know. You know, you hear a lot of people talking about, you know, the kids climbing the walls. Take the walls away, you know, this is here. This is always, you know, hopefully always going to be here, you know. And with it being free, you know, all we've got to do is look after it, and it will always be here to you know, effectively provide us with an area to use, you know, a bit of fun, you know. Like I said, kids are climbing the walls, take the bloody walls away. You know, let's get them out and about here, let's get them doing a bit. you know, and at the end of the day, it's not much, is it? It really ain't much. So as you can see now, I'm all packed up. What you should always do when you're spending any time out in the great outdoors is try and practice a bit of a leave no trace policy. So as you can see, there's no real signs, significant signs to say that I've been here and spent a bit of time this morning. Maybe a little bit of ground disturbance, but you know, with the ground being so sort of riddled with ivy, etc., etc., that's a really difficult thing to achieve with, you know, the idea of the fact that I've been cooking and sort of heating water and stuff like that. So I said, but to be fair, that's, you know, as clean as I found it. So I'm gonna pack up and get me backside on home. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been fantastic to be out of the house and have a little bit of time to record this video for you. Just wanted to clarify that when I was talking about sort of parents sort of struggling to you know, control their kids, and wasn't necessarily meant like that. It definitely wasn't a rant at anyone, and it definitely wasn't a rant at anyone in particular. It was just a thing that's kind of, since I've been a assistant scout leader for the last year, it's more so something that's been sort of on my mind. You know, the more time I spend with the scouts, they have restless sort of evenings, and again, not poking at anyone. I'm a parent myself, and I know how difficult it can be at times. You know, I also know how fulfilling it can be at times. But you know, it's just more of a consideration for people to think about, you know, when it comes to sort of, you know, the long-term sort of education of your children, which we all, you know, we all like to do our best to succeed at. You know, like I said, you can't get any better than this, you know, and it's free. It doesn't really cost me particularly anything this morning to come out. You know, and it could be exactly the same for your children, and just think how much fun they could have running around in a place like this. You know, a couple of dead sticks off the floor for makeshift swords. You know, it doesn't have to be anything sort of too thought about, too elaborate.
you know. So like I said, I just wanted to clear that up. It wasn't a poke, wasn't having a rant, and I wasn't trying to be unfair to anyone in particular, but it's just general observations of, you know, living and growing up on a council estate, that, you know, life ain't always easy, but, you know, when you've got stuff like this around you, just, you know, I just urge you, I pray, you know, I beg you, just get out and make use of it. You know, go and see what it's all about. It doesn't. I came out into, you know, into forest and stuff like that sort of years ago with pretty much no knowledge whatsoever. You know, no knowledge whatsoever. You know, a little bit of time invested, a few YouTube videos, a few books, you know, a few TV programs, etc., etc. later, you know, and a bit of invested time, you know, to educate myself a little bit. You know, and I'm not the greatest outdoorsman in the world, never ever professed to be, and I never ever will be, but, you know, I at least know enough just to get myself out and about and have some fun, be comfortable, you know, and kind of thrive a little bit, you know. That should be what it's all about. Oh, a lovely little spot this could be. Right, that's me. I'm going to shoot off because it's clearing up a bit, but it still looks like it's got the potential to rain or sleet, so I'll catch you all soon. Ta-da!